It's time to wake to sleep with Sleep Science Today, where we learn to sleep well with your host, Andrew Kolsky on UK Health Radio.
Welcome back to another episode of Sleep Science Today. I am your host, Andrew Kolsky, and today we're going to be talking about sleep issues and the tech sector. We've got our guest, Jordan Epps. He is a LMFT, Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist. Do I have that correct, Jordan?
Yes, you do.
Great. And he's going to talk to us about his experience dealing with tech sector employees. So welcome to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Great. I've got a lot of questions because I know we're talking about the concept of tech, but tech to me means any sort of high pressure environment where there's a lot of people trying to do a lot of things in a small amount of time and probably a lot of anxiety and other pressure involved, I'm guessing. But tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into dealing with sleep issues, and especially in the tech industry?
Well, originally I'm from Los Angeles, California, and back in 2008, once my wife was able to obtain her MSW degree, we said, hey, let's try a new job environment. So we decided to take a chance and go up to the Bay Area, California, around Silicon Valley. It was there I was able to get hired by a company, Crossover Health, that contracts with a lot of different tech companies. So I was able to be stationed at one of these tech companies, and when it comes down to what got me into sleep, I enjoyed a lot of the different specialties I had, but I was really intrigued by one of my colleagues who was seen as a sleep specialist and had a sleep group. It was just seen as the sleep guru. Mm-hmm. And when I had a chance to consult with him, I was able to get an understanding of what are the different techniques that he's able to use. In addition to, he was able to redirect me towards the training to become a sleep specialist myself. So he was able to direct me towards CBTI, and then from there, he was able to pass the torch to me to continue working with this tech company on being one of the frontline individuals to help with sleep, in addition to trying to create a sleep group there.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that certainly opens the door to a lot of questions that I'm going to have for you here, because typically when we're thinking of companies and tech companies, maybe even large law firms or places that you picture people working a lot of hours, it's kind of an antithesis to think about them being worried about sleep. You would think they'd want to figure out, how do we keep our employees up? How do we get more productivity out of them? So it is really intriguing that here are some companies that are actually paying attention to sleep and trying to make sure that they're offering opportunities to their employees to get good sleep. So in general, in the area, you're living amongst a lot of tech entrepreneurs, a very progressive area with lots of tech companies. What would you say in just your own experience? Does it seem like most of the tech industry is interested in sleep and employee health, or are there some that are more about, productivity regardless of sleep and mental health?
I would say they care to an extent about both.
Okay.
You can kind of imagine it's like a car. You want a car that can get you all the miles, but you also want to make sure that it's efficient enough to keep going. Mm-hmm. So I would say, yes, they want all this productivity. At the same time, they want to make sure that this individual is still maintenance to continue giving them productivity.
Right.
Because some of the common concerns that we address is myriad of concerns. I mean, anything from anxiety, depression, all that can lead to potential burnout. So if you're in a position where you can actually help individuals going through burnout and be able to work on bringing some healing to an extent, you make it so they're more effective workers overall. So I can see how it can work hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can certainly understand that there's plenty of opportunities for burnout. So tell us a little bit more about that in terms of, if an employee is experiencing burnout, what things might you see about them, and does that have any direct application to their sleep, or is sleep just something else in the mix? How do those kind of fit together?
Well, sleep can be a symptom. I wouldn't say it's a main symptom to be present in all cases, but it definitely is a common symptom that we can see because with burnout, I mean, we have many individuals. If you wanted my opinion more about burnout, is we have many individuals that have these routines, and at the end of the day, with through all the stress they went through, maybe they only have a little bit of coping tools to try to get some of that energy back. But overall, they end up going to the next day in a deficit. So they still go into the next day, still feeling a little bit drained. And that adds up by the end of the week. And then by the time they get to the weekend, in many cases, the weekend isn't enough to help them get neutralized. So they go into the next week at this deficit. And this deficit continues until they get to the point where they've dug such a hole. There goes the motivation. There goes the ability to manage stress. There goes sleep. And now they're looking to help to try to dig themselves out of that. And part of that is working on their routine so that they can at least recover to some extent on a daily basis versus waiting for a weekend to help them recover. So that's when sleep can play a part because when we're able to help them manage their day, it puts them in a better position to get good sleep, which can help prepare them for the next day.
Right. I can imagine, an employee listening to our conversation and being a little bit scared or concerned. It's like, well, but I need to be productive to set myself apart from my coworkers, and I need to make sure that I, am constantly up on things if I'm going to move to the next level in the company. And how do employees end up kind of adjusting the different things they need to do to deal with the burnout, but also want to be productive employees?
That's the hard sacrifice a lot make because in sleep we could like as much as someone wants to come and get help with sleep, it's difficult if you have someone that wants to come in and say, hey, I need to do this Red Bull at midnight and then drink a cup of coffee, can you still help me sleep? It's like it's kind of like hard because we can't do what we can't say, hey, you can still keep this lifestyle and have a fantastic schedule. We can just be
Right.
honest with them and say you can continue that, just be aware this is one of the symptoms that are going to go with that. So for
Right.
them, it's hard because it's finding that right balance. And many of them can work hard. It's just understanding that you can't necessarily work 18 hours a day and expect to just make it all up the second you go to bed. It's like, no, you gotta have some type of balance here. So it's trying to see how within these guidelines can they still, or at least, let's be honest, get a more realistic perspective of what advancing in a company looks like
Right.
versus this fantasy-based perspective of, like I mentioned, 18 hours a day, and somehow all I need is 6 hours of sleep, and I can wake up right to my meeting the next morning and get it going again.
Yeah.
So it's realistic expectations that we have to work with them on. Because yeah, all of it are goals, but we assume that we're going to just be workaholics to make it happen, and that we can just go 100 miles an hour and don't have to worry about the engine bursting.
Yeah, no, I get you there. So, and I don't know whether you have had the opportunity to get the answer to this question, but do you feel that the employers, at least the ones that you work with, are let's see, in tune enough to the need and the benefits of good sleep that they take that into consideration when they're looking at sort of the structure and how employees move up and who's considered to be a star performer, et cetera? Is that something that is in the mix, or maybe you're not involved in those conversations and you wouldn't know?
Safe answer is it is above my pay grade. It is a
Okay,
conversation that I am not at the table for.
right. But clearly, the companies that you're doing work for obviously are offering benefits to their employees to help them with their sleep. So it must be some degree of relevance to them, or they wouldn't even be offering it.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic benefit that a lot of these companies have in the Silicon Valley. Whereas they get free therapy in many cases up to like 25 free sessions. If you go over, it's like a $15 copay. And for a lot of these employees, believe it or not, we're seeing them doing their shift. This isn't we're seeing them like before their shift at 7 a.m. or after their shift at 6 o'clock. We're seeing them doing the shift. I mentioned before I work at one of these tech companies, meaning we have a clinic on site. So in many cases, this person's able to go to a meeting and then walk or take a shuttle over to the clinic, which is on site, and get their services, and then go right back to work.
Oh,
In
okay.
many cases, they're doing it virtually from home. They're doing it virtually from the same meeting room that they just had a meeting in. So it's really convenient for a lot of these individuals. If anything, The one thing I admire about this is even when you and I are talking about sleep, in many cases we're talking about the basic, population in the United States. What makes at least the tech industry interesting, or at least in Silicon Valley, is literally planet Earth goes there. This isn't just like a bunch of Californians getting therapy. We're talking individuals from Australia, China, India, United Kingdom, Brazil, all over the world are coming, and then they're being educated on this, on their benefits, and hey, it's okay if you want. Schedule your own meeting. We're leaving it up to you. Schedule your own meetings to go and take care of your mental health. It's available. It's free. Take advantage of it.
Right, and that's great that it's there. So, I'm curious, if you're dealing with a tech industry, I assume that they're very comfortable using computers and technology for pretty much a lot of things that they do. Do you find that people have a preference one way or the other to meet you in person versus like a telehealth appointment? And do you prefer one or the other? Do you think one works better than the other for this particular population?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'd say COVID really challenged my original views, because my original views were, hey, gotta do it one on one. That's when you can, be attuned to the facial expressions. That's when you're able to really limit distractions and make it so, hey, it's two people in a room working with that energy towards healing. With COVID, as you recognize, we were in many cases forced to do virtual therapy. And but the good thing about it is, at least in my case, I was able to get enough experience to see how can I still, be able to work with them from the virtual platform. If anything, it made it a lot easier for me because I was able to use more handouts now. I was able to do more presentations now. I was able to use the whiteboard on most of these programs now to kind of help educate them. So if anything, it made it a little bit more flexible. I didn't have to rush to the printer. I had all my files ready, and I could just share them right on the screen and switch to the next file and work with them step by step on these. So I would say when it comes down to preference, I got to a point where I started preferring virtual myself.
And I'm right there with you for the very same reasons that you mentioned, because it's when you're trying to educate someone about a particular concept or something, it's one thing to talk to them about it. It's another thing to be able to share something on the screen and show them a chart or a graphic or whatever it may be. I think it makes the point a whole lot more, a lot easier for them to understand in many cases. I also personally like the concept of telehealth because if you're talking about people, talking to them about sleep, if they can actually be in their home where the sleep occurs and you want to ask them questions about the lighting in their bedroom or whatever it may be, it's just so much easier for them to physically be there and talk about it to you.
Yeah, especially if I'm going over like some concepts like mindfulness and grounding and having them just become more aware of how they can use their environment to help them cope.
Right, exactly.
Having to recognize, hey, that picture on your wall, do you recognize it anymore? Do you recognize that, like, what brings comfort to you? Do you recognize how you can still customize your environment to help you? So these little things, it invited us into their homes, which I would say was the most beneficial aspect of treatment, just being able to see and work with them in their natural environment.
Right, right. So, all right, so we've kind of got a good background and setting here, and in this minute, I want to talk about some of the more common type of concerns that tech employees deal with when they're struggling with sleep issues. But we're going to stop and take a quick commercial, and as soon as we come back, we will talk about those common concerns. So this is Sleep Science Today with Jordan Epps, and we'll be right back. You're watching Sleep Science Today. If you enjoy our show, please help support us by pressing the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. It'll really help us get seen, and it'll help you stay informed. Okay, we're back on Sleep Science Today. I'm Andrew Kolsky, your host. We're talking to Jordan Epps about sleep and the tech industry. So just before we went to break, Jordan, we said we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what are some of the most common concerns that tech employees struggle with for their sleep issues.
The common concern I'd say that many tech employees struggle with is the work-life balance. Because I mean, with many different jobs, many of us are fortunate enough just to have a 9 to 5, where the second it ends, that's it. Outside of processing, work stress, that's it. We're not still at work. The issue I see with many tech employees is, majority of them are on salary, and a majority of them have to find out how to organize their own schedule for work. So many of them will do let's say like a 9 to 5, and then a habit of theirs will say, oh, and then I'll get back to my work project around 8 or 10 o'clock at night. So I say that's one of the main issues that I usually see is that work-life balance, and how work tends to be more important than life. We end up getting like this minimal amount of life that they engage in throughout the day because they're so into the work stress. And that's what I see ends up running into their sleep time and impacting them the most.
Right. So that real self-driven stress to make sure they're performing at work. I wonder, from my own conversations with other therapists in the same area where you are, the same tech area, there tends to be a lot of tech employees who are single and are looking for love, but the timing and their schedule makes it difficult. Do you ever find any sleep-related issues with people who are struggling with relationship issues too, or is that just something separate from what you're dealing with?
Not necessarily I say I have the research to be able to see the correlation. Can it be a factor? Anything can be a factor, of course, when it comes down to sleep impacting their ability to engage in meaningful relationships.
Yeah,
at least what I see is for many of them, when you set that time factor, one of the main things I see, let's say software engineers, let's go with, because that's majority, software engineers. The one thing that a lot of software engineers would probably agree on is that they are exposed to infinite work. It's infinite. So this concept of, oh, let me try to get this done, let me try to get these things out the way, it is infinite. How do you cope with something that's infinite? How do you let go of something that's infinite? That is like one of the main dilemmas I see.
Wow. I never thought about it that way, but that is real, because you can't get to the end because there is no end.
Yeah, it's very rare that they can be like, oh, I finished a project. Well, yeah, you got a bunch of other projects you're trying to do. Or, oh, I did this one. Yeah, but you're still trying to get impact, so you're still connecting to all these other projects that are available.
Wow. Yeah, that could be really difficult, because you can never see the light at the end of the tunnel because the tunnel just keeps going.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're working with data and coding, and it's different if you think of like more physical-based jobs where, oh, we're building the pyramids, good, last stone, good, we're done with that pyramid. That's it.
Right.
We're gonna break until someone wants us to do another pyramid. In their case, it's just this infinite data stream that they're working on.
Right.
Infinite things that can be worked on, infinite bugs, infinite glitches, just infinite work.
Well, and I can imagine that many of them are probably also very interested in what they're doing, and so they get caught up and don't even realize that time has slipped by, and they're still working on, whatever that next piece of code is.
You got it, because it's a joy for me. Coding, many of the ones I know love it. If a job will give them a good amount of coding and a good manager, they'll love the job.
Right.
But it's hard to let go because they're having so much fun at the same time. It's like, hey, there's other things you gotta do to balance your day.
Right. Well, that goes back to, it's like, I guess it's hard to schedule a dinner date with somebody when your day just continues to go, and maybe you eat something on the run, or maybe you stop briefly for food and then right back to whatever project you were working on, and then the day's gone, you didn't even know it.
Yep.
Wow.
You got it.
How do you find any issues with just setting regular sleep hours for themselves? Because if they get caught up in a project and they're going, I can imagine it could be 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. They don't even know it. Is that an issue that you deal with?
Oh yeah, that's common. That is very common. They get sucked into these projects until like 2 a.m. You are correct. And then for many of them, they can have these abnormal sleep schedules where they feel, oh, I'm just going to go to work at like 10 or 11 o'clock, which sounds lucky for many of us, but it's so irregular that it's hard to kind of get them on like a strict plan. So I get a significant amount of pushback, especially under like CBTI when we see significant concerns. We try to prescribe. Let's say, I don't know, they want 8 hours of sleep and they're only getting like 5.5. It's really hard to kind of introduce to them, hey, can we at least master 5.5? Can we at
Mm-hmm.
least build up your sleep drive to make you knock out at this time? And, without the work and everything, just your ability to just relax and get there. It's really difficult for many of them.
Wow.
Especially, I mean, for any of these sleep schedules, remember, we're telling them, hey, can you let go of work at a reasonable time?
Right. Right. Well, is it, this is something that I've heard on the internet, so it could be a total myth or not, but I wonder if you have any information. I've heard that some of the tech companies have places where employees can actually go and take a nap if they're tired. Have you ever experienced that?
I have not. I
Okay, I
have not.
just,
Not where I work. I'm not
right,
going to say, I mean, let's be honest, hospitals do, but I don't know
right.
about in the tech industry. It's possible, though.
Yeah, and that's why I say I don't know if it's true or not, so I don't want to say that it's true, but it's something, you read little articles here and there, and you hear employee benefits, and they got a recreation room where they can go and play ping pong and do this and do that if they're
That is true. Yeah,
okay.
the ping pong part. But I mean, what can I say? Anyone can book a meeting room and do whatever they want.
Right, right, right. Interesting. Okay. So you said, we started talking about some myths there. What would you say are some of the most common myths that you hear about sleep from tech employees?
I mean, this is a basic one that I need 8 hours of sleep. Somehow this is, I mean, I feel like doing the math here. Let's see. 8 hours. If we divide that times 60, let's say, that means someone's saying they need about 480 minutes. I need
Okay.
exactly 480 minutes of sleep here. And if I don't get my 480 exactly, I'm going to have a concern. And then we can even take that into seconds. If I don't get my exact 28,800 seconds, I'm going to have concerns. It
Wow.
can't be off. I don't know about 28,000. It has to be exactly 28,800 seconds I need to go to sleep. That's one of the common myths I see. I'm glad that it's like an average number, but I don't know when the average turned into like that's the exact number that we all need. Don't worry about age. It has to be that exact number. For 2-year-olds, for 10-year-olds, for 40-year-olds, it has to be 8 hours.
Wow. Yeah, that is definitely a very common myth across the board about sleep hours because everybody is individual and everybody has different, thresholds of what they actually need. And then you also mentioned the age thing. Different ages, we sleep different amounts. And, I'll work with a lot of older clients who, wonder why they're not getting the same number of hours of sleep they got as a teenager. And it's because
Yeah.
you're not a teenager anymore. Your body is in a different phase.
Yeah, everybody's different. And then it's funny because then they have this pressure of like, oh, I got 800 more seconds. I got to get back to sleep. It's like we're doing math. We're going back to like math class while trying to go to sleep and then wondering why I can't sleep now. Yeah, it's because you are processing math and stressed out about it. So
Right. So I'm going to guess, do a lot of them end up wearing sleep trackers like, Fitbits and Apple Watches and stuff?
Yeah. It's like, how'd you sleep? Let me tell you. Let me check my watch first so I can tell you what my sleep quality was. I was like, I'm asking you, not the watch, but okay, I'll wait. Let's see what your watch says. My watch says I kind of tossed and turned a bit, like normal humans, but yeah. Let's see what the watch says. If anything, it's as if the watch should come to the session.
Right.
Now, mind you, they're helpful because the one thing I think about it is it's really making people interested in trying to improve sleep. Now, that much I will say. I'm not going to just bash the watches here, but it makes people interested in sleep, and that's great. But still, the watch can then even create some of these like false beliefs about sleep, especially like that.
Right.
Ooh, I toss and turn. I need to not toss and turn.
But do you ever have people that you talk with who tell you that, their watch tells them that their sleep is off, but then when you start talking to them, they're like, no, I sleep fine. No, I'm not tired. No, I don't have any actual symptoms.
You got it. Because
So how do you deal with that?
Well, that's the thing, because we have to educate many that think of it like a problem. A problem is a problem if it's affecting you and your daily functioning. If it's actually affecting something. Like if all of us have emotions, but what we're looking for is the impact it has on your functioning. So the main question I'm always asking people is, despite everything you just mentioned about sleep, how do you feel in the morning? That's the main thing I want to know. How do you feel? If they're saying, I feel good, there's not a problem.
Right.
Other than maybe like, helping them with some of these check marks. Outside of that, it's like, if you're good, you're good. If anything, it sounds like your job's going to be happy to receive you the second you come in. Everything's going great.
But my watch says that there's a problem.
That's the hard part. The watch is basically going to identify things that can be worked on, right? It's no different than if we go and see like an auto mechanic. I mean, the car's running fine, but you could kind of tweak your brakes a bit. You could kind of work on that line a bit. It's like, of course, there's so many things that all of us can do to work on improving, but does that mean it's necessarily a problem? No.
Right. So yeah, and there's actually something called orthosomnia, which is a sleep problem you get because you're worried about what your sleep tracker says that is not matching with the reality of your own experience.
Yep. It's created more stress for the person, more worries, more things to think about, more things to work on. When, like I said, for many cases, you felt fine in the morning, so you were good to go. Ignorance was bliss.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I'm just picturing, a tech-heavy community who lives their life with tech must really be, have a hard time accepting the fact that my tech device, my watch says one thing, but I feel fine. My sleep is fine.
Yeah. Makes it even harder because I'm not a fan of tech around bedtime in general, and just to see everybody getting their watches and everything set up to knock out, and the first thing they're doing is getting to the watch in the morning. I'm like, more of a fan of you just getting to relaxing.
Right.
Before bed. Getting to relaxing the second you wake up.
That's also a great point to think about. How do you have clients that talk with you about, their use of tech as they're trying to get to sleep, meaning their cell phones, their computers, their TVs, those types of things?
There's this one common case I get from many, and this can be any company. So a common case I can get is you'll get to like a tech company, and your tech company, because they want you to work on all this different data and get signed up to all these different company chats, they're going to give you like a free phone. Many of them, like, here you go, here's your free phone. Now, for many individuals, I mean, when you get a free phone, that's one less bill. That's awesome. Look at me, I'm saving money. I got one less bill, and it's like some type of, for some companies, they'll give you like a new phone. Look at me, I got the new iPhone, good to go. Then you hook up this iPhone, like most people, to your watch. Like, I got this watch. It works if I hook it up to things. I'll hook it up to my work phone. That becomes problematic because now you get alerts from work, not just throughout the day, but also through the night and through the morning. So it's kind of interesting. Because if I want to check the time, I got to check the time and be triggered by anything having to do with work. Right. So now at work, I have officially invited work into majority of my day now.
Right. Oh my God.
So that's one of the main concerns I see with like some of these watches is just all the different alerts that's basically going to do what it's supposed to do. Alert me. Now I'm alerted more throughout my day.
Right. Well, so that begs the question of what it is that these people can do to make adjustments to that so that they don't have all of these tech devices impacting their sleep. But before we answer that question, I need to jump to another commercial break, and then we'll come back and answer that question. So stick with me. This is Sleep Science Today with Jordan Epps. We'll be right back from this commercial. You're watching Sleep Science Today. If you enjoy our show, please help support us by pressing the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. It'll really help us get seen, and it'll help you stay informed. All right, this is Andrew Kolsky on Sleep Science Today. Welcome back. We're talking with Jordan Epps about sleep in the tech industry, and we were just talking about the use of tech when they're trying to sleep. So how do you help people deal with that? What do they have to do to sort of break that habit?
Well, as I mentioned, the one struggle that they had initially is that work-life balance, and how can they separate work from life? Or at least have a cutoff where going forward, it's just life at the end of the day. That's it, just life. Part of that can be, hey, eliminate using, if you have one of those, watches, hook it up to a personal phone, which is hard because many would have ditched their personal phone to even get the company phone. Let's say you still have both phones. Only link it to your personal phone. And do not put all your emails and stuff on there because, hey, your old habit was, if I want to check emails, I'll check my phone, I'll go to emails, okay, there's emails there, versus getting like a vibration on your wrist all the time throughout the day. Another thing that I would say is, let's say they only have the work phone. Be in a position where you can turn off some alerts. It's going to be difficult, but you want to turn off some alerts. And if that's still really, really hard, then be mindful of that when you off work, you may also have to put your watch down. If it's really that hard, mind you, most of them, they're great when it comes down to figuring out technology, but let's say it's just really hard to let go. You may have to put your watch down around certain times of the day and not get back to it until the next day.
Right, right. Do you find they're able to do that, or do they really struggle making those changes?
It's, of course, there's going to be an initial struggle, but most of them can learn, you know what? I have clocks elsewhere. Time's not going to stop because they're not wearing the watch.
Right, right. Wow. So as you know, we're talking about dealing with some of the things that are causing, that are impacting their sleep. So in your experience, and I'm just asking your experience, in the clients that you work with who are dealing with sleep issues, what would you say would be sort of the most common mental health issue that they're dealing with that impacts their sleep?
I feel like doing a fun drum roll, but anxiety.
I can certainly see that.
Worries, fears. I mean, it could be about generally anything. It can be particularly about the math of sleep. It can be about, oh no, am I going to be ready for tomorrow? Oh no, am I up too late? Just the general anxiety, I'd say, is what impacts sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tricky one too, because it depends on the level of anxiety. You can get just the light anxiety that you can just work with based on sleep, give them a general education and they're good. And then you have some major anxiety where it's going to take a few sessions to even get to the bottom of that.
Right, right. But they have the time. I think you said they get 25 free sessions or something, right?
Yeah. Because that's what's difficult. Because if someone's not sleeping, of course we're going to ask, why? What's going on instead? What are you doing instead of sleeping here? And it's like, are you so energetic that you want to go to the gym? And for the most part, no. It's that I'm thinking about different things. I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about tomorrow. I'm thinking about, like many that left coding, I'm thinking of ideas. It's like, okay, so the the bed now becomes the place of inspiration. Mm-hmm. So we have to be inspired and somehow sleep.
Right.
And we're going to inspire ourselves to sleep.
Wow. That's got to be an interesting, set of conversations that you have.
Yeah.
So I know that, excuse me, I know that you are one of many people who works with the mental health department. Do the other therapists that you work with, are they in tune to sleep? Like, do they know to ask about sleep problems, and do they understand the impact that sleep has on mental health?
Yeah, it's part of our assessments that we do. Part of our initial assessments, trying to get a gauge on sleep concerns, and then me and I have another colleague I work with. We do our best to educate not just our mental health colleagues, but also the clinic on, hey, if you're recognizing sleep concerns, we're available to help.
Mm-hmm.
So wow. It's good. It's a good referral system that we have to make sure that everybody's being directed towards the right professional to assist them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I find it interesting, because I do shows on many different topics. One of the things that I've learned a lot about is in certain countries, like in the UK, for example, doctors know to ask about sleep. It's just a primary thing they're going to ask about. Apparently, it's just, straightforward. Then you come over to the US, and many primary care doctors don't really think too much about sleep. They haven't been taught too much about it, and it's just sort of a side thing if they mention it at all, or maybe it's more of the patient saying, I'm having trouble sleeping. So same thing from mental health. In my experience in the US, most mental health counselors probably have never even considered sleep issues in relation to mental health. So I'm glad that you all have it kind of integrated there.
Yeah, like at least for us for mental health, one of the basic questions we're asking everybody is, how many hours per night are you getting for sleep? And then even getting deeper, how do you rate your sleep? If there's concerns, what do you see as concerns? Of course, given my field, I'm going to be able to specialize more in asking follow-up questions. But the good news is that they're still able to subjectively gauge, hey, how is your sleep quality? Do you see any concerns going on?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, something else you mentioned earlier that I wrote a note to myself because I wanted to ask you about it. You mentioned that, in the tech industry, you've got people from all over the world. So you've got all different cultures, ages, just religions. I mean, everything, just a whole diverse, type of employees. Do you ever find that certain type of cultures or people are more interested in sleep or less interested, or is it pretty much universal, just a person period having trouble with sleep? Because I don't know. I'm just, I'm genuinely interested. Maybe other cultures value sleep more or focus more heavily on sleep.
I wouldn't necessarily say I get coaches that focus more heavily on sleep. I mean, with my caseload, it's basically like a classic example of having the village people on your caseload, just wide diversity of like patients coming in. But I wouldn't necessarily say. I mean, I would love it. I mean, I would seek them out. Like, hey, I'm here for you guys. My whole
Right.
business would go in that direction. But um, I mean, like most, I'd say I haven't had many come in and say like, hey, you know what? I want to work on my health. You know what? I want to work on sleep. I'm a huge fan of sleep. I want to work on improving it. How can I get better sleep? I'm usually getting individuals that are suffering and coming
Right.
in to get assistance.
Right. Right. So if I, ran a big tech company or a big company of any sort, let's say, and I started to become aware of how sleep impacts my employees and impacts their mental health and physical health and all that, are there any pointers you could give me of things I might want to think about of how I could recognize whether sleep is an issue for my employees?
Well, we can go basic old school, which is surveys. What are concerns that you're trying to get addressed? How do all of you enjoy your sleep? Is it enjoyable? Are there concerns? I mean, for myself, I had to advocate to create a sleep group, and to do that, I had to ask a lot of my colleagues and the doctors around the clinic to gauge with them, hey, how many individuals are coming to you saying that they have a sleep concern? And it's not necessarily saying this is the primary concern, just how many are saying like, hey, I have issues with sleep. Because many of them
Hmm.
believe like, oh, I just got to work on all these other things, which in many cases are true, but not understanding that like sleep is something that we can still work on in addition to you working on those other concerns.
Right.
So at least when we were able to do a survey on our end, we got an idea that like, you know what, this is a common concern we have, and we were able to assist them with that, or at least put myself in a position to advocate to have another sleep group that's able to assist many with getting some, advancing their education on how they can improve sleep.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I just, as I become more aware of the impacts that sleep has upon our mental and physical health, I see how it is a very important part of any workplace as well. And then I start thinking about places, while you're talking about some of the employees you work with, they stay up late because they're interested in what they're doing and they kind of lose track of time. I'm thinking of shift workers who actually are assigned to go to work at the overnight shift or something like that. And then they've got to make adjustments. And, you know, um, I've come across cases, from when I was practicing law, of people who get themselves in trouble because they fell asleep at work. But then you look at the conditions and all, and it's like, well, I, any person would fall asleep under those conditions. So it does become an issue depending on the type of workplace and the type of schedule people have. But wow. So would you say in general the sort of support for the concept of good sleep is universally practiced in the tech industry from what you've experienced, or would you say there's some places that maybe are not as in tune to it?
I would say not as in tune because in many different places, I mean, of course, a job's gonna say, hey, do your best to take care of yourself.
Hmm.
But they're also their goal is how can they get more productivity, which is the hard part. And to get more productivity, you're not going to have many jobs give a boundary of saying, "Oh, don't work past 8 o'clock."
Right.
There's many cultures where they feel pressure because they see other. I mean, it's like you go online and you see all your other coworkers online. Oh man, they're online too, and you feel this pressure of, I got to work as hard as them. And then
Right.
it's as if it's praise because this is a person that's working hard, getting more impact. And now I'm pressured. I got to work hard and get more impact too. And it's hard to have anybody say, "Hey, don't do that. It can impact your sleep. It can impact your ability to manage your mental health. Slow down." It's more promoted. So that's like the hard balance there. Like, how can you have people not fall into this like this peer pressure of I need to keep working late. My manager even likes it when I get more work done, and kind of say, hey, you got to take a step back here. Let's be more realistic about what our expectations are as a company and what we're expecting out of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't say this. Many of them try, but let's be honest. You can't do that for decades.
Right. Right.
Well, I mean, you get most people in their 20s. I mean, I feel like they only need like 4 hours of sleep. And they're like, boom, all this energy, got something to prove. You're jumping in and you're putting in all this work. And it's usually more later on that are gonna get that are gonna just crash and be like, okay, I got something's wrong here.
Right. No, I hear you. So just in general, of the 100% of clients who come to you for sleep issues, what percentage would you say are actually able to make meaningful changes that help them improve their concerns?
78, I'd say.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Excellent. And most of it, like you said, driven by anxiety.
Yeah, anywhere from like the 75 to 80, so I think it's 78%, because they're getting, I mean, a lot of them are learning about all these different habit changes they can do. Because if anything, that's like the biggest surprise of sleep therapy. I don't know if people come in and think, I'm going to give them this speech, we're going to explore childhood, and all of a sudden we're going to unravel what's been blocking sleep this whole entire time. For the most part, it's just them learning like, yeah, what you're doing right now is like drinking a Red Bull at night and then trying to sleep.
Right.
And then just noticing when they can just start doing these adjustments, seeing like, wow, that was it. Like, that was it. Don't smoke cigarettes before going to bed. That's a good factor.
Right. Right.
Ending work at a good time. That's a good factor. Letting your mind actually unwind and heal prior to going to bed versus having a stressed out mind go to bed. Yeah. Those little tweaks can work. And then we get to the whole processing all the myths and everything about sleep, because that's also a big part when they realize, wow, I thought that was true. It was like, no, that was false the whole time. Oh, I thought I'm going to have some big medical issue. It was like, I think a big medical issue would be how you're running your life in general.
Right. Well, this has been really, really interesting. And, it's interesting to hear sort of from the inside of what it's like in the tech field. And we're out of time for today, but Jordan Epps, I want to thank you for taking time to share with us your experiences and kind of give us a peek behind the curtain of what people might be able to do to help themselves with their own sleep issues at work.
No problem.
So thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Sleep Science Today and learning how to sleep better with your host, Andrew Kolsky, on UK Health Radio. For more information on how you can achieve better sleep, go to sleepsciencetoday.com. Remember, sleep science today and sleep better tonight.